Welcome to the Obvious Podcast. This is episode 42. My name is Sonny. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Associated Builders and Contractors, Florida East Coast.
And I'm Peter Daiga, President and CEO at ABC, Florida East Coast.
You are listening or watching the Obvious Podcast, where all opinions expressed are our own, unless we say otherwise.
And do you love the show? Subscribe on any major podcast platform or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow the Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, and True Social. All the links you need are in the show notes. And reach out to us anytime at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And if you're enjoying the ride, help others find us by leaving a review wherever you listen. How's it going, Sonny?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
So I wanted to, I'm just going to start this. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles. Shakespeare, Hamlet, and what made me think of this was toxic leadership, right? And I was thinking about how impressive and destructive toxic leadership is.
Sure.
And how easy it is to kind of slide into that, right? When you can have the best of motives, you can have the best of intentions. And we're discussing this today because Peter and I, as the executive leadership at ABC, it's a very complicated, complex organization, multiple moving parts, multiple audiences, multiple boards, large number of employees. And so we're always looking for processes and mechanisms and ideas with which we can be better leaders. And in our quest to be better leaders, we encounter toxic leadership. We, of course, always encounter toxic people, which is a part of life. You have to kind of deal with them. But the price organizations pay for toxic leadership is amazing. And I'm sure you've all seen this on LinkedIn. There's a line that people post frequently. People don't leave jobs, people leave leaders, right? Or people leave their bosses, or people leave their teams, or whatever it is. But people, it's like they're never leaving an organization, they're leaving the people they're with. So, and you realize the impact toxic leadership has. And look, obviously we're not Pollyannish about this. We've had toxic leaders show up in our organization, and you have had to deal with it, I've had to deal with it. They come and they go. But the idea of how do you recognize it and how do you prevent it? That's really what I wanted to talk to you about, because you're celebrating your 26th year at ABC, and you have had amazing leaders, great leaders. This wall behind us is filled with pictures of transformative leaders that have helped you make ABC what it is, bring ABC to a position that it is in today, which is unprecedented in its 75-year history. So here we are, and I would love to know your thoughts on, and then not just how do you recognize it, how do you deal with it, how do you prevent yourself from turning into a toxic leader? Because nobody ever sets out to be a toxic leader, right? Yeah. People transform into that. And if you're self-aware enough where you're curious and you're wondering what sort of patterns and habits I can fall into that would make me a toxic leader, let's talk about that. How do we keep that from happening?
Wow.
Simple episode.
Yeah. So help me out here. So self-help and self-help books and gurus and speakers and all that stuff have been really big for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I've always, I feel like I, as a person, have kind of tried to, my personal philosophy and my beliefs, which are no secret, are kind of really are the cornerstone, if you will, of my self-help.
Yes.
Right? And my self-improvement and the things that my faith, calls me to do and be and whatnot. Recognize my weaknesses, always trying to improve on my weaknesses but I think for the most part, I've been very blessed, right? I followed things that I love for the most part of my life, politics, and ended up working for the legislature, and then was very worried about what am I going to do for my life? I'm not going to work for the legislature forever, and I didn't really want to be no knock against all our wonderful lobbyists that we employ here, but I didn't really want to be a contract lobbyist for my whole life. And I was fortunate enough. I found an organization who I believe in our mission. I believe in the meritocracy that is at the base and foundation of who we are, and that just has kind of made working and life great. And I've been blessed to be put into leadership roles. So for me, it's like trying to recognize, my weaknesses, trying to hire to my weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
That's a philosophy I've tried to live by, hiring people that can compensate for. There's a few other philosophies I try my best to manage and live by, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it or I do it 100% all the time, but I'm a firm believer in if you don't care who gets the credit,
Yeah.
you can achieve a lot, and that's fine. It's hard sometimes, right? Because when you're in a leadership position, especially when you have bosses and a different set of bosses every year, they need to know the things that you've achieved and the things that you've done. But when your humility and your philosophy on life is, don't worry about who gets the credit or give the credit to the other people around you.
Yeah.
Which is, anyway, it's a balancing act.
So I read somewhere, and I wish I could remember where I read it. It was a great leader makes sure they're at the front of the line where there's trouble, and makes sure they're in the back of the line with their success, right? And I would say that describes you to a T. But this, what you were just saying about your value system and your faith system, made me think of a movie I saw in the late 90s. It was called Ronin, Ronin. I highly recommend it. It's a heist movie.
You and movies, you are just
right.
Unbelievable.
Thank you. And takes place in the south of France. It's with Robert De Niro, and he's in hiding because they've just committed a heist or something, and they're hiding out with this British gangster, and the British gangster works on miniatures, and so Robert De Niro walks in. He's working on a miniature, and he's like, "What is this?" And so the British gangster goes on this whole explanation that what he's working on, it's a Japanese village, and he says Ronin are samurai that have had their master killed. They're masterless samurai. So they go into this entire plan where the samurai will go and avenge their master's death. And after they have avenged the death of the master, they kill themselves. And they're called Ronin. And Robert De Niro goes, well, that's pretty stupid. Why would they do that? And I'll never forget this line. The guy who's working on the figurines says that at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, something outside of yourself has to be served.
That's a very profound truth.
Right? And I never forgot that line. And I realized so much of toxic leadership is centered in the fact that people are looking to serve themselves. Mm. And the more you look to serve yourselves, the more toxic serve yourself, the more toxic you become as not just as a leader, but as a person. And if you realize that there's a mission, that there are values, that there is a purpose to life that is beyond self-serving and beyond enriching yourself, I think you are on the path to becoming an amazing leader.
Sure, amazing leader, and probably a much happier.
And a much happier person.
Person too. So,
in fact, the most miserable people are the people seeking happiness all the time.
Absolutely. So, and that's a profound truth. And I just want to be clear: we've been blessed with so many amazing leaders in this organization, and all of whom volunteer their time. Right? They're doing this out of commitment to the mission, I think. And the truth is, in the spectrum, you're never really at the two extremes.
Correct.
Every one of us is somewhere in the middle, and maybe even at different places on different days of the week, or different issues, or different circumstances.
Although I'll say I've encountered some extremes, so it's not, that's
in your life,
in my life, and not here, but in my life, I've definitely encountered some extremes.
That's fair. That's fair.
But you're right. Most people are somewhere in the middle, and I think as long as you are aware of the fact that, and I hate the whole sort of self-improvement industry that's kind of popped up, and that's not what I'm referring to. But in your quiet, contemplative times, if you realize one, you're not perfect. And two, everything you have to do will require deliberateness. And I talk to so many of our staff here, and they are consistently overperforming, and they're consistently happy with their work quality. One of the things that I hear all the time is they love our mission, right? To them, they're serving our mission. They're not here for reasons that could be nefarious, right? That they are here to serve a mission. Of course, everybody wants to be paid well. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to have a good quality of life. That's not sort of
Absolutely.
that's not that's the base, right? That's like the basic in life. But to go beyond that, and it's like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's tons of ways to serve yourself, but why are you serving here? And the idea that they realize that there's a mission that's greater than Peter Daiga or Sonny Macon, and that they are here to live out. I mean, I'm convinced that that's why ABC is as successful as it is. That's why
I agree with you.
Our institute is in year 50. That's why our chapter is 75 years old.
Well, and why they're not just stagnant either, because it could be very easy and very convenient to, as good as things are, is to just don't rock the boat and steady as you go. But we're also organizations that are, if you look back 2 years in time or 5 years or 10. There's consistent progress. I mean, it's just amazing. So I couldn't agree with you more, about the organization, about people's motivation, about that, because we have such a strong mission and one that is so many people are passionate about. By the way, Sonny, too, in terms of the skills and what you brought to this organization, I mean, I don't think I was, bad necessarily at, attracting the people who were happy and did the right thing, but you have added an extra layer of that to me. I mean, you're certainly a great leader in terms of that, and have supplemented tremendously, I think. I, over the years, for example, and we've talked about this in the past, just, me and my statistical background, and how I'm always like data.
Bachelor's in...
How can you measure employee happiness? Quantitative management.
Yeah, that's very impressive.
So one of the ways we do measure it here is, which is we find very interesting, is the tenure of employees, right?
Yeah.
So how many employees total do we have here?
33 full-time, 65 part-time.
Yeah. So, count the part-time, we're approaching a little over 100, a little under 100 total people on the payroll. And we're not talking about, when I mentioned this data, the instructors.
Right.
All right.
So those are our part-time employees.
We have part-time employers. So, but all the other employees at ABC, the average tenure of ABC employees right now is 6.4 years, so almost 6.5 years.
Wow.
We have many that have been here 20, like myself and a few others. But, obviously, new employees, that old saying about be slow to hire and quick to fire.
Yep.
We try to, in some ways, live by that here, because relatively soon. So that always obviously draws down, I think, average figures and tenures. But
we like to fail fast, right?
That's right.
If we're going to fail, let's fail
one
fast.
Of your sayings that you drive home here. Fail fast, figure it out. So anyway, my only point of that is, even with that, because we have people that come and this isn't going to work out. Either they figure it out soon or we do and move on. But even with those people, 6.4 years. So I mean, I think that's spectacular.
Yeah.
I think that speaks very well of the organization. So and to your point, people are motivated and driven by multiple things here.
Absolutely.
And we're constantly trying to, and I think, by the way, that's important for good leaders, I think, is to make sure there's clarity on that mission, right? And it's not just us, but it's our volunteer leaders as well.
Yeah.
Which we consistently, more than once a year, but once a year where we together for a couple of days focus on it, but then throughout the year, make sure we focus on it. So care to guess what the average tenure is for a construction management employee in the industry, according to the World Wide Web?
I would say 7 years.
3.9 years, so a little under 4 years.
Half of what I guessed. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of movement.
There's a lot of movement
in this industry. There's probably a lot of movement. I didn't look up what the average tenure is in the nonprofit world in general. I just kind of was focused on where we stood. So in any event.
So then, okay, my next question for you. Let's say you end up in a situation with a toxic leader, right? And this could be a volunteer leader within your executive team. How do you handle it? Like, how do you start? How do you begin the process of deconstructing the damage that's been done by that leader?
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances, whether it is I think the way you approach it is going to be different, whether it's a volunteer leader or someone within the organization.
So let's go with a volunteer leader first. I'd be curious how you would handle that.
We're fortunate. I got to be very, very careful about the words that I use. And again, I think we've been blessed by amazing leadership. I think I've told the story, by the way, and I'm not diverting. Maybe I am.
No, it's okay. But before you divert, I'm going to say the average nonprofit CEO, and this is according to the nonprofit.
This is just the CEO, though.
CEO, just the CEO, is 6 years.
6 years. All right. So our
knocked it out of the park.
yeah. Well, either I've knocked it out of the park or I didn't move around enough to advance my career. Who knows? Again, I think, have been very blessed. In fact, I think I've shared with you in the past that when I became chapter president, and I had been here at the chapter for about 12 years or so as vice president of government affairs.
Right.
And obviously I had a strong support, I think, and my predecessor was mentoring me and was behind my advancement, if you will. So I had a lot going for me. And for a lot of people, when they hired me, they had their own set of concerns. I think for a lot of them, they expressed either at that time or later was whether I had the knowledge or the complexity or the understanding of financials and finances to actually do the job.
Even with your major.
So as it turns out, I wasn't necessarily worried about that. My biggest concern, and this is to the point of what I think I've shared with you, was, and it gets to the point of leadership, I think, was I saw for the years that I was, not at the in the C-suite, so to speak, as the president and CEO, the quality of the leadership at this chapter and how the process for our incoming chair picking whatever few vacancies we may have and continuing to process that leadership development as an organization.
And so you guide that process.
I was most concerned about that. I was like, my predecessor must have some special sauce and he hasn't shared it with me, or I don't know what it is. And I was worried about would I be able to maintain or do what was necessary to help the organization maintain the quality of the leadership, the lack of toxic leaders, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because by the way, I'll tell you, you're in this business of either nonprofit or association management, you hear a lot of stories about toxic leadership, about that destroy organizations, quite frankly, pit affiliates and organizations against one another, that are the demise of organizations. I mean, it's very, very common. So in any event, that was the thing I was most worried about. And quite frankly, I don't know that it's not really to my credit. I think it's more to the process, the staff here that we always, who do they see as up and coming leaders? Because they're the boots on the ground at the committee level. They see who's sponsoring, they see who's attending, and that's usually the genesis, if you will, or the core, the headwaters.
Really, that's a culture you built, right? And as you know, we say it at ABC all the time. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? Which I love saying that.
Favorite sayings. I
love saying that because I see it all the time. And so we have an amazing culture. I think that, and what you're really doing is you're telling of sort of you're talking about the actual pieces that have built that culture, right? And how that's guided this organization because the culture has been able to.
Right. That's a great segue, because I guess my answer in the long of it is it's really the culture, I think, that helps us to get around whatever elements of toxic leadership there may be, and there may just be small elements here and there. Because the culture we built is one in which the people that we're bringing up through leadership, the fact that we're an organization with a board, right? So a lot of you're insulated. Well, the three different organizations, each with their own board, but each of those boards is more than one person, right? Yeah. So, and even the leadership on our executive committee, and you become chair, you've come up through years of being on that leadership with being surrounded by other great leaders.
Great leaders.
So I think that kind of modulates, if you will, the ability for any kind of toxic elements, to actually take hold.
Popping head up.
Or to get,
No, that's wonderful. Yeah. Well, we hope you found this useful and entertaining. If you're struggling with this, reach out to us. We'll be happy to give you any advice. If your organization needs any help, we're happy to talk about it. Toxicity, all toxicity does is it detracts from your mission. So if your organization has a great mission and that's part of your culture, you can turn it around and you will succeed.
Yeah. Sometimes you do have to push back, So you and I, half jokingly, but we're not really joking. So we want to write a book.
We do.
So for the nonprofit or association world, it's in the nonprofit association world, there's a few organizations, the American Society of Association Executives and the Florida Society of Association Executives. ASAE used to really publish a lot of great work, and they've gotten a little bit away from it, I feel like, in recent years. So
hopefully they'll listen to this.
Hopefully. So in any event, we'd love to write a book about because I think we've got a lot to share about pursuing missions and as nonprofit organizations, how to do it successfully.
Absolutely.
Pitfalls to avoid. So
we'll let you know when it hits Amazon.
So,
well, thank you for joining us and listening, and we look forward to sharing another episode with you next Friday.
All right, until next time. Ciao.
Take care.